Again, I wish to extend a welcome to each and every one of you as we gather on this holy night of remembrance, this night when we gather in our grief, gather together with one another to come to this table of hope and new life, the table in which the Lord feeds us with his body and blood. There are many blessings and privileges that come with being a priest, but I'm sure I speak for my brother priests and for the bereavement committee. It is an incredible blessing that we have the opportunity to accompany you as you have had to come to terms with the death of a beloved person. It is one of those moments that changes us. It terrifies us. It breaks our hearts. It can confuse us. But there's a strength when we come together in our anguish and our sadness to know that we do not walk alone. We do not walk alone. We walk with one another, and ultimately, of course, we walk with the Lord. This past Holy Week, I had the tremendous grace to be in Jerusalem for Holy Week, and anytime you go to the Holy Land, it's an extraordinary experience. I always hope and pray that every person at some point in their life could walk where he has walked, to walk and to see firsthand the places of our Lord's life. And this Holy Week was an extraordinary moment for me of immersing myself not just in the story of Holy Week, but just, I'm a veteran of many Holy Weeks, but there was something about this Holy Week and encountering the humanity of Jesus. Yes, Jesus was the Son of God, but he was also a human being. And as you walk the steps of those ancient streets, you feel on a human level the suffering he endured as a person, to be in the place of the Last Supper and to see the place where he first washed the feet of his disciples, to walk along and encounter the Garden of Gethsemane and the Via Dolorosa, to see the place where he was crucified, humiliated and beaten, and ultimately to see the place where he was risen. On Easter Monday, the gospel that we heard today is proclaimed, and one of the things I've always wanted to do was to walk to Emmaus. Emmaus is a 7-mile walk from the center of Jerusalem. The ancient city of Emmaus has been lost to antiquity, but biblical archaeologists have 3 or 4 places that they have a hunch is where this ancient city was. I went to the one where most theologians feel is the place where the 2 disciples were walking along the way, discussing all that had happened. You know, in grief, we walk together and we discuss what has happened in our lives. And it's in speaking with one another that we begin to feel the love and promise of the Lord. Sometimes it takes a long time to wonder, where was the Lord in my grief and sadness? How did this have to happen? Why did it have to happen? As we gather in this church, it's always astounding to me when you look at that cover of the bulletin and see over 100 names, and each name represents a whole circle of relatives and friends and neighbors who are grieving that particular name. And when you step back and see the collective grief on that cover, it's overwhelming. For some of you, death came as the result of a long period of diminishment and decline, a long period of dealing with suffering that comes with chronic illness and aging. For others of you, death came as a thief in the night. There was no time to prepare. There was no expectation. Nothing but a phone call that every person would dread. But no matter what the circumstances that bring us together, whether it was the awful struggle of cancer, the devastation of Alzheimer's, the reality of depression and suicide, a car accident, a heart attack. What these moments do is they bring us together around the Lord's table to open our hearts that are so wounded to his love, and to know that he is very close to us, just as he was very close to those two disciples walking along the way who just couldn't really understand why Jesus had to be crucified. Why did he have to suffer? Questions that are not terribly unlike perhaps some of the questions that you continue to struggle with in your own process of grief. And grief is one of those journeys that's different for each one of us. You know, you can have a family and everybody is coping with this loss in a different way, and that's okay. And there's no time limit. I know I'm often asked, Father, when will it stop hurting? And there'll come a time when it might not hurt as much, but it will always hurt as we call to mind who this person was. You know, I look at all these beautiful faces up here. Each one of them had a journey. Each one of them had a great story. Each one of them was surrounded by family and friends. Each one of these faces mattered. Each one of these faces made a difference. Each one of these faces was a daughter or a son of God. Each and every one of these faces walked through life as a bearer of the light that was given to them at baptism. And today, we yearn to see that light, the light that they know now in its eternal power, the light that they know now that is beyond the wildest expectations of our human experience. For paradise, for heaven transcends time and place and circumstance. But today we renew our belief that through our baptisms, that light has been handed on to us. Through our baptisms, we will never be separated from the love of Christ. And as a result of that baptism, we embark on being a radical voice of hope in the world. There comes a point facing death that no one can explain in any way that is satisfying as to why did this have to happen. There comes a point when we have to do the leap of faith, just like the disciples and the first believers eventually had to simply trust that Jesus had risen from the dead. And they began to get glimpses of what that meant. As we continue our journey to Emmaus, the place of understanding, we open our hearts to the prospect of his love and his care for us, and hope that we might find the same reassurance that those very first disciples experienced. When I was in the seminary 100 years ago, there was one of the great theologians of the 20th century was a Jesuit by the name of Father Karl Rahner. And he was one of these extraordinary complex thinkers. And we would always be basket cases preparing for examinations when we were studying Father Rahner's writings. He was an extremely influential theologian. He wrote a reflection on the occasion of his own mother's death that I find very comforting, and a reflection I would like to close with and share with you this evening. He entitles this A Meditation on Grief. They do not leave us. They remain. Where are they? In darkness? Oh no, it is we who are in darkness. We do not see them, but they see us. Their eyes radiant with glory are fixed upon our eyes full of tears. Oh, infinite consolation. Though invisible to us, our dead are not absent. I have often reflected upon the surest comfort for those who mourn. It is this: a firm faith in the real and continued presence of our loved ones. It is clear and penetrating conviction that death has not destroyed them nor carried them away. They are not even absent, but living near us. Transfigured, having lost in their glorious change no delicacy for their souls, no tenderness of their hearts, nor especially preference in their affection. On the contrary, they have in depth and in fervor of devotion grown larger to 100-fold. Death is for the good a transition into light, into power, into love. Those who on earth were ordinary Christians become perfect.